Salams and peace, y'all. It's your favorite hijabi, ASMABEEME. This is my very first video, but make sure you like, share, and also click that subscribe button for more content from me. Let's get into it and tell you all the details on how I, as an American, randomly left America with a newly remote job and went to UK. And why? I know so many people want to know why. So let's get into it. Always been a fan of travel. I love travel. I love the sun. I had only been to Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago prior to this whole new venture thing that I came up with in my head, right? Okay, so hear me out. I would say like 2021, 2022, my group of women were in Georgia because my family is from Georgia, or family is living in Georgia now, but we're from Philly. So I was staying there at the time. This is after the C word had happened. So I was down there. So my group of women had changed or whatever. And these women that I were hanging out with, two in particular, shout out to y'all, I ain't gonna say their names. One was a little older and one was a little younger. Both of them were very learned, like in travel. So the older one, she is a professor, but she travels the world and does different contracts. And she's been almost everywhere, right? And then the younger one, she was married to a speaker who traveled a lot, so she would travel with him. So they would always come together and we'd be sitting and they talk about these traveling stories, and I'm like, dang. All right, so I have a passport. I do have a passport. It expired. I haven't been anywhere. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm the Muslim girl. I don't want to travel by myself. I don't want to go anywhere on my own. I mean, I do, but then I kind of don't. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm scared. I'm nervous. I've never really been anywhere. Again, only those 2 islands, and I went with other people that I knew. But I was definitely tired of listening to everyone telling me to wait, but not giving me alternative, like, okay, wait, and then we'll go at such and such time. It was just me always waiting on other people. And it's like, how long am I going to wait before I start to experience and living life, right? So it's kind of crazy how it went down. But so these 2 women happened to come into my life 2020, 2021, 2022. So the stories of travel was like all around me. I was like loving every single piece of it. And on top of that, what I got to learn from them is they both had different experience. But what I realized is that it was possible to travel as a woman and on my own and me not dying or something crazy happening to me. You know how people always throw out the craziest things that potentially happen if you go somewhere. And it's like, I'm not really a scary person like that, but I had always been trying to be cautious because the thought of going somewhere and doing it on my own prior to sitting with them so long and hearing all their stories, I was kind of nervous about the idea of it. But sitting with them, God put me with them, and I love the fact that he did, because it kind of made it seem more normal in my mind to just go ahead and pick up and travel and try it out, right? So fast forward, I wound up getting a phone call from a temp agency. I had worked for the temp agency in the past, but they had called about a banking position, but it was work from home. Banking that's not my experience at all, but I think they may have saw that I had work from home experience. I'm not going to lie to you. I have worked from home different types of ways, running businesses and working with companies for over 6 years. So I'm very comfortable with staying in the house and minding my business and not going outside and not have to drive and not have to be in a hustle and bustle and not have to pay extra gas, all that stuff. So I was excited about that. But the banking thing, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not really sure what to do with that because my background is in healthcare and administration. So I'm like, all right, but it's going to allow me to stay home. So I just went ahead and took it, right? So in the midst of me thinking about it, I was already on the fence because I was thinking about going back to school for something. And I'm going to tell you guys probably about that in another video, but let's just stay focused. But I decided to go back to school. So I came to Philly and I did CCP for a semester because I was working on prerequisites, right? So I had missed, what wound up happening is I completed my prerequisites, but then there was a class that I had purchased separately, like to do online to get credits for. but I didn't finish it in time. So I needed a particular time frame to get everything done in order for me to move to the next step by the next semester. I missed that. So I was like, okay, the program that I'm interested in going into, they only offer it once a year. It doesn't roll around twice or more than that. So if I miss the deadline, I have to wait till the next year. I was automatically annoyed about that, right? But I was happy I completed my prerequisites by the end of December of 2023. So that was good. But I'm like, I'm not interested in being in Philadelphia. I don't care about going back to Georgia. It's fine. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, something was calling me saying, just go to the UK. I'm not gonna lie, I was interested in going because it's very much still city life. It's very much still people who speak English, so I don't have to adjust to anything. I'm a hijabi. There's plenty of hijabis there. There's plenty of halal food, so I won't get lost. So I'm like, all right, let me just go for it. What do I got to lose? And I had my passport. It had just came January 2023. So I'm like, I'm gonna shoot for the stars, and I'm going to be working this work from home job, and I'm gonna see how long and how far it carries me. Okay. So I'm not gonna lie, I did not tell the job that I went overseas. I didn't tell them that. But let's stay focused here. What I did is I had got a VPN and I wanted to work in that way. Boom. I'll share the information for the VPN in the links in the description. But anyway, fast forwarding. How I prepped, because I wrote this stuff down. How I prepped, I had run it. So okay, here's another thing. UK is not set up. You should be prepared that every country is going to be different. Because mind you, I was doing my homework. I'm not going to lie to you. In the moment that I realized I had missed my deadline, like I started my semester in September to do my prerequisites. I missed the deadline by, I believe, October, November. So I knew by that point that I was going to have to wait till the next year if I was going to do this program at CCP. So I'm like, all right. Once I knew that, I started rapping in my brain and talking to myself like, all right, I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to leave and I'm going to take the job, right? So the first thing I thought about is, where am I going to stay? I started to Google and I started to dig to try to figure out what was my housing and living arrangements going to be, right? So I'm like, okay, UK, their GBP is more than USA money. Let's just get straight to that. So the cost of living is going to be higher. What was I thinking, right? But let's stay focused. I was excited about the culture, the Muslim life, like the Muslim culture, the city culture, the food. That was enough for me. So, and then I love the accent, the British accent. Again, we can talk about that in another another video. But here we go. So what I realized immediately is that when you're looking for housing, you're not going to be able to do it over the phone in UK. They don't have too many companies where you can just go ahead and click and check out, like an Airbnb or something similar to that that's outside of those type of platforms. They don't really offer that. You have to meet someone, you have to see someone, and then me coming in as like a visitor and not an actual citizen, it's a little bit more complicated. I knew that I was going to be there for at least a couple months because Americans are able to go to the UK and stay there for up to 6 months as a visitor. Okay, you're up to 6 months as a visitor. So I knew I would at least be there for a couple months. I didn't know if I was going to be for the whole 6. I was just trying it out and seeing how I was going to feel about it, because again, I'm not going to say nowhere that I don't want to be. So it was really going to be about, once I get there, how it felt and what was the vibes, right? Also too, want to keep in mind, I had purchased a ticket in January, and after the holidays, the prices go down. So guess how much my one-way ticket to UK was? Like $400. I was impressed because you can look at other parts of the year where people are traveling more, and it can be like $1,000 or more. I got my ticket for $400, and no, it was not on JetBlue or nothing like that. So that was nice. I got the ticket for $400. I was looking for places to stay. Once I realized that I was not going to be able to like sign a lease, like I feel like in America you can get a lease and potentially sign it or do a quick sublet easily. Like we have a lot of technological stuff that allows it to be easier. There, that's not the case. So I knew, let me go to London, get settled in. Like once I get on the ground, then I can start meeting up with people to potentially get a longer term housing. But for the moment, at least let me get in and lock something in for at least the first month that I'm there. Okay. So I did book on Airbnb. It was a really, 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 really cute posh spot as well. It was very expensive, I'm not gonna lie. When I first started this journey, I was spending a lot of money. It hadn't hit me that UK and US, the money don't add up, but it's in reverse. Like in most places, you go to the other country and your money is long as an American, but in UK the money was hitting. It was a little short. So I was bougie in the beginning. So hear me out. Let's talk about this. I was very bougie in the initial stages of going into UK because I'm like, listen, I'm posh. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to be, get my British accent on and all that. So I stayed in a very posh spot. I was in Islington, North London when I first started. The place was like, when you convert the money, it was 2,200. Could I have found something cheaper? Probably. But in my mind, I was thinking, listen, I want to be comfortable. I don't know how this place is going to go. And then I also need to be in a spot that is going to be suitable for me to be able to function and use my Wi-Fi and the VPN. Yeah, because I still had to work. Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second. So the people were really, really nice. They were very accommodating before I even got there. It continued to be that same way. Shout out to them. I really, really do appreciate it. And I'll actually put a link for what company I used when I first got there. Really, really nice company. So next thing, once I got there, so they are about 4 to 5 hours depending on their daylight savings time. They're ahead of us in time. So I thought about it, but I didn't really dig too deep on it because I was going to do it regardless. My hours for work for the remote banking job was 8 to 5. So that wound up converting to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 to 10. So when I first got there, I really didn't get a chance to venture out that much, but it wasn't the worst case because it was also in January and it was cold. It's kind of snowy, so it wasn't too bad. But when I first got in, I was really only able to hang out in the morning time or before 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. or late at night at 10 p.m. So my first month, I kind of chilled out. I was mostly in the house and I was just praying to God that the VPN would keep checking out. Like I stayed on edge because I didn't know even going into UK if my computer situation was going to work out with the job. But thank God it did. Alhamdulillah. I was there for the first place for a month in Islington. And I explored. I ate for sure. The first thing I did was get some halal food. The first spot that I went to was a halal Jamaican spot because there's only one spot that I know of in Philly that has halal Jamaican food. But other than that, I didn't know of any. So I was so excited. That was like the first thing I told myself I was going to eat when I got there. It wasn't that good. And they microwave everything. It's not fresh. Anyway, everything was mostly work the first month. The other thing is that what I realized, I thought through the first month and I knew that I was going to be renting again somewhere else for another month because that's how I started in increments of a month. And I had told myself I didn't want to just stay in one area because I wanted to literally take a look at as much of London as possible. So every time I moved per month, I went to another spot. Yeah, it sounded really good as an adventurer because that's what I am. I love to explore. For the experience, it was good, but I had four suitcase bags and 1 duffel bag. And so very quickly, after maybe this 3rd or 4th move, I was tired. I was trying to figure out like if this is the plan, but I stayed a lot of places. I won't lie to you. I stayed, let's how we started out. I started out in North London. Then I went to Northwest London And by that time, Ramadan was setting in, 2024 Ramadan. Guess what I did? I took the computer from Northwest London and went to Turkey. I went to Turkey. I was literally doing these like working this bank situation, and the adhan would be calling like for the different salats while I was in Turkey. And sometimes I would be on the phone. So I'm like, do they hear me in the background? Do they think it's like an alarm? Okay, it's not funny. But I was living my best life. What I will say is that Turkey, your money is a little long. So I was living somewhat like a queen. Again, I wasn't really going out very much because my hours. So Turkey is further ahead in time than London. So I was actually, I was starting work at probably like, I think it was like 3 p.m. when I was in Turkey. And then it ended at 12 p.m. Mind you, I was fasting as well. Keep this in mind. So my time that I went before, when I was in Turkey, when I would hang out and venture out and stuff, was anytime before 3, or I know this sounds bad. You can haram police me later, but I was hungry. It was Ramadan. I was fasting. So when I would be breaking my fast, I would still be working. And then by the time 12 a.m. hit, I would go get a snack. My favorite snack, and while I was in Turkey, was the stuffed mussels with rice, midye dolmas. Those are very, 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 very good. And also, people were eating them like 5 at a time. I think it's like a snack for them. And then, you know, you put the lemon juice over, and then I would add the sriracha hot sauce. Oh my God. I ate that almost every day, I'm not gonna lie. And they would serve them fresh, chilled, but they are cooked. They're not raw. They were very, 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 very good. I saw people eating like 5 of them at a time. I would buy like 20 and they were only like $3 maybe. So I was having a good old time. I was having a good time. But again, I couldn't do anything later than 3 p.m. or it would have to be after 12 a.m. So my venturing out, I had to stick to a schedule because I had to work at the same time to cover everything that I had going on. Boom. So what I wound up staying in Turkey in probably like a month and a half. I did. Mostly because I was dreading going back to UK and having to pay the housing prices, the rental prices for the month, like how I had done the first month paying $2,200. I was nervous about it. I was like, oh my God, do I really want to? Because in Turkey, I was spending maybe $150 a week where I was at. So $150, so that winds up being what, $600? $600. And then also too, I got that from off of Airbnb for the month and a half. But after probably like, maybe after like 2 or 3 weeks that I realized, 'cause I didn't know how long I was going to be there for. I was really, this whole traveling thing was going off of how I felt, which shows me that like you really can go anywhere you want. It's always great to be well prepared, but you can literally go anywhere. It's really not that hard. I mean, we make up a lot of excuses, but you see how I was moving, and I was just basing it off of how I felt. I mean, again, I had the job, so it wasn't like I was, you know, I was able to work and still have money and, you know, enjoy the time and have fun. But, okay, what I will say is always be prepared. Always be prepared for something to mess up. Be prepared and have some extra money, a cushion. Also, just don't take a leap and not know nothing about what you're doing. I had a little bit of idea. Would I lie and say I had a lot? No. But you don't necessarily have to be like me, because I'm going to tell you, you know, what went wrong, what didn't go wrong. Don't necessarily be like me. I'm the adventurer. I'm the guinea pig. I've always kind of been like the guinea that tried everything out and then tell everybody else about how it worked out later. That's me. So I'm okay with that. If you're not and you're a little bit more scary, I maybe plan it out better. Planning sometimes isn't You have to put action behind whatever it is that you say that you want or that you want to do. You have to. Because if not, you wind up just sitting and sitting and sitting, get older and older and older. And you never wind up figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. Like, these things matter. It builds character. And it speaks and tells you more about who you are. So taking a leap sometimes is really necessary. Action is required. But anyway, so let me tell you how I wound up leaving Turkey. Because so by the middle of Ramadan, I was starting to feel like, oh, okay, I'm ready to go back to UK, because I spent half of Ramadan in Turkey, but I wanted a different vibe. One, I will say, there's a few things I'm going to say about Turkey. The food is good, but the food is on repeat. They don't have like the Chinese store here, then the Poppy store here, then like Thai here. They don't have it like that. In Turkey, they rep and they set. All they do is serve Turkish food. And the food is very good. I got to the point where I knew where I was going for what I was going for. That's how it was. But it kind of got to a point where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm ready to switch it up. And then if they were nicer, I probably would have stayed longer. But they were not nice. They weren't very nice. The experience was like, they were very standoffish. They don't speak our language. They speak like a little bit of English, but they're very standoffish. Like, they really don't want you there like that. But for the most part, I didn't have like an extremely bad scenario other than one, which is why I wound up leaving. So let me just get into that. I kind of was already starting to feel, okay, all right, I've done what I needed to do here. Let me go ahead back. I had a little vibe. I also went to the museum that has like the Prophet's footprints and Musa's art staff and like their swords and all of that. I'll link that down at the bottom too. I don't remember the name of the museum, but it had all that stuff, and I really was vibing for Ramadan last year. It was really, really nice. But time is up. Like, I don't like lingering on stuff that's expired, right? So when I already started in the spilling, I happened to go out one night after I was working, which is like 12 a.m. I knew I needed to say that, so because it's a highlight moment. I had went out late, and it wasn't any different than other times that I went to go get a snack. It's Ramadan. If I'm stuck and working inside, the only time that I got to come back out to eat is later. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do it. And mind you, Turkey is a place they be staying open late. People was out like late. Stores are still open, so I didn't feel bad. So I this was like no other night. It was similar, but it was a little bit different. I wound up walking to the road. I went to my place that I normally go to. I got my midye dolmas. I was walking back. I had my little bag. I had my groceries, and then I had my food that I had ordered. I was walking, but I noticed it was two Turkish boys. This is Ramadan. Let's keep this in mind. It was two Turkish boys. They were at one of the crossroads, and they were talking to each other. I walked past. I did recognize them, but they weren't doing anything strange, so it wasn't really anything to think about. But I did notice them on the corner of my eye, and they was talking, and they was standing by. They were along the road, but people were walking. I wasn't the only one walking. There was other people walking down the street, but they happened to be on the road just standing. We were off the main road. So then because I also stayed in Istanbul. I was in Turkey, Istanbul, but I didn't stay like in a resort area. I stayed in like the neighborhood area. And the way that is set up is there's a lot of alleyways. Yes, a lot of alleyways and a lot of dark spots. So they do have lighting, but depending on where you are within that alleyway and the way that it's set up, it can be really dark in certain corners. I know it sounds great. Just stick with me here. Again, I had got used to that because I was walking there almost every day in the morning or at night. So I was walking, and once I got to that point, I would always look around because the last thing I want to do is somebody jump me or something happen to me while I'm in an alleyway or in one of the areas that's a dark little area right there. And I know that. So every time I would go in or come out, I would always check my surroundings to kind of see who's around me before. Okay, so when I did that, I turned around and I saw the two guys who was on the road. At first, I was kind of looking and I'm like, what are they doing? I mean, not saying that I was in an area that other people couldn't be, but how did they catch up to me so fast? They was far behind me at first. so they were closer. So then I started to notice that they're like speeding up, but they was walking still, but they was speeding. I'm like, oh. So as soon as I noticed that, something didn't feel right, so I turned the opposite direction of the alleyway and started walking back to the main road. Yeah. I'm gonna need somebody to see this or hear me or something, right? So I started walking back, and as soon as I did that, one of the guys like bum brushed me, knocked my daggone midye dolmas over in the back. That's the first thing I was like. Then I had my phone gripped, but I mean, it's by the grace of God. I had my phone gripped, and he tried to snatch the phone out of my hand, but I had it so tight because of the way that the food had dropped, and you had me twisted the way I had walked out here to go get that. So I was holding the phone. He tried to smack it, but I still had it. Like, I had it very tight. Luckily, they didn't come back and try to fight me for it. All they did was kind of like push me off, and then one of the guys blew a kiss and they start running through the alleyway. But then I was nervous because I'm like, are they waiting for me to come around the other way of the alleyway? Are they just going to be waiting there? I was kind of nervous for a while. So I wound up walking back to the street. I stood there for a second. I started thinking, and I'm like, listen, I knew I was trying to figure out when I was leaving. Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. So that's what wound up happening. So I was nervous. I had somebody on the phone. I wound up calling them, telling them like, listen, bruh, something just happened. So I said, can you just stay on the phone with me because I'm trying to just walk back to the house. So they told me like, all right, just walk back to the house, like because I was nervous about if they would be waiting for me around the corner. Nobody was, luckily, but it is still dark over there. So I stayed on my phone. I got to the house and I was like, all right, so I'm leaving tomorrow. And the good thing about London is because it's central to almost everywhere, no matter, like when you leave and come to London, it's very cheap. So like it was maybe like 50, I would say maybe like $100 to, it was $50 to go to Turkey. I feel like I paid $100 to come back. And I came back that next day after they had robbed me because I said, I won't give you another chance again. And it's supposed to be Ramadan and you don't care. Oh, no. And y'all not nice? Oh, no. So I spent the rest of my Ramadan in London. And it was actually a vibe because at that point I was still working, but you know, by the time we're back at me getting off at 10 o'clock. So I used to be able to make tawari. Yeah. So so that's where I was like, okay, London is lit for Ramadan. So East London, I went to East London Masjid. I just so happened to go there because I forgot where I was supposed to go. I went somewhere, and in the midst of me going to this place, I stumbled on Whitechapel in East London. This is where you're gonna find all the hijabs, all the scarves, all the abayas, all the Indian clothes, it's Bangladeshi Asian 5.0. But they have wholesale. They have like cheap clothes, wholesale clothes. They got food. They got vendors. They got fruit, and everything's out like on the street, like it's a street market. So it's a lot of stuff there. And I stumbled upon that on my way headed somewhere else, and then stumbling upon that, I found East London Masjid. And when I say their tawari prayers, I was so happy. I was like, something was calling me to not finish my Ramadan in Turkey. And I feel like it's because it gave me a chance to also feel the vibe of another place during Ramadan. And London was lit during Ramadan. Those tawaris was hitting in East London. So what I wound up doing, guess what I did? I wound up getting my next place for the next month near East London. So it's easy for me to keep on coming to the tawaris. And so I can scope more of East London out. Right? So that's how that wound up working. Mind you, I'm still working 8 to 5 technically from US hours, but 1 to 10 UK hours. And I was making that tawari work, and that was the highlight of my days while I was doing it that way. I was still renting Airbnb, but I want to tell y'all, booking.com is also a really good one. That was where I was getting other stays as well, and they were offering good prices when Airbnbs were going up or the quality wasn't really up to what I was interested in. I used booking.com. Also too, I want to tell you that there's an option to use Spare Room. In Spare Room, they have like sublet options, house share options, studio options, and then they also offer rooms. And then another site that's similar to Share Room is also Open Rent. I actually like them a lot. They have a lot of options, and then they also let you, say for example, you wanted to rent with someone, like rent a house with someone, they'll let you chat and get cool with someone who you think might be a good candidate, and then they kind of like link it, so when it comes time for y'all to actually rent, it's kind of like already sorted within the app. So I like that app as well. Also, two things that I found out which were really, really good as far as housing is concerned, is dot property and also Global Guardians. Listen to this one. These are really, 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 really good housing options if you see yourself potentially staying there for at least a few months or more. You do not need to be international in order to use this type of service, but it's called a guardianship. The guardianships allow you to take over what would be like vacated houses, vacated properties, and for you to watch over and make it so that it's not vacant. So where like people believe that it's the squander, you stay there at a cheap rate. There is no set time, but you can wind up staying there for months. But if in any case that they decide, okay, well, they're going to be selling a property, or they need it for something else, they give you 30 days notice. So I believe that this is a really, really good option for those people who are like open to moving around, open to potentially staying for longer periods, and who can commit to the requirements of being a guardian, which is actually being inside of there and being somewhere within the property to be able to oversee it, to make sure that it doesn't look vacant. And just keep in mind, just so you know, these are not places that are completely deserted. Other people live in them. It's just that these are properties that have not really been managed in a while, or that may be getting sold soon by the government or something like that. So it's not really on display for actual rent, like the major upkeep and things like that, but you are able to rent it. And I thought it was a really, really good, and that was why I wanted to go with that option. You pay between like maybe 390 pounds to like 950 pounds. That is really, really good if you're looking at a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom apartment. And you can choose to either rent it out yourself, or you can rent it out with other people, depending on how many rooms. And then that will make the rent cheaper than what I just mentioned, because those are for single occupants, or like if you match up with someone. So anyway, so that is a really, really good option. The only thing that I will say, because I'm going to keep it real with y'all, I'm not going to lie to y'all. Do y'all know what a council is? Let me tell you what a council is, because I had went to one of those appointments and I was looking around confused, because some of these places, I'm not all of them, I'm not going to bring all of them down, but some of them, I was like, if I was in America, I don't think these would be rentable. I don't think that you would be allowed to rent some of these the way that the condition was. However, they're giving it to you very, very cheap compared to the cost. Typically, it's going to cost you at least $1,100 just to rent a studio in London. It's very expensive. And then if you're getting a 1 bedroom or anything more than that, it's going to be at least $1,600. But this is in GBP. So if you convert that into American dollars, that's $100. I'm sorry, that is $2,200 or something like that. So that's what I was always looking at, stuff that was like 2,000 or like maybe 1,800. But again, the GBP start to add up on these USA dollars. So I started to struggle a little bit, and which is why I started looking for other cheaper options to choose from as I continue to stay in the Airbnb and the Booking.com options, because those were very expensive. Anyway, fast forwarding, I wind up staying at several different studios. Then it got to a point where things was getting it started to get a little tight. So like, let me see, by April, because my job left the end of January, by April, they were telling me that my contract with the remote job was going to either be renewed or it was going to end. So I was trying to figure out how that was going to go. So I said, let me buckle down on my money, and I spent every single penny. I thought that was a little smart. So I was like, okay, so what can I do? I have never, ever lived with other people before, like other than family members. So I was seeing like a lot of like share a room, house share. And I was like cringing a little bit, but I'm like, dang, do I want to be smart or do I want to be dumb and wasting a lot of money, like how I had started when I first got there at the end of January? So I'm like, okay, let me humble myself. So I found a few rooms that were actually really, really nice and really nice houses. And I was spending maybe like 100 to 200 pounds a week, which wasn't the worst case scenario. But you're living with multiple people. So pretty much it's like a studio within a house. Like your room is your room, and it can be big. Some of these rooms were big. Obviously I kind of would tread lightly if it was extremely small or whatever, but everyone's preference is different. I kind of like still wanted to have a certain type of vibe. I didn't want to feel stuck. So I did do a few rooms, but they were like very nicely well managed rooms. Then it started getting a little bit ghettoer, and then Airbnb started disappointing me, which is why I'm giving you all these other rental options, because Airbnb does not be Airbnb how it used to anymore. And the quality done dropped to the flow. So that's why booking.com wasn't bad, but it was also pretty expensive like an Airbnb unless you catch a really good deal. So the other options that I mentioned, and I'll put them down in the description for you, those you want to kind of check those out, especially if you're trying to save a buck. But it's time to take some of these places. I don't know, you know, as an American, I don't want to be smart because I love my UKers, okay? I love my London gals. I love y'all, but the quality of living was I had to adjust to that. Like I was, you know, America, I realized, because I was talking a lot of trash about like a lot of things about America, but you know, traveling will get you to start thinking about who you are, where you come from, what you about. Because when I was over there, I'm like, I see why people do not like Americans. Like I thought going to UK, they was going to have the tea. They was going to be super proper. The girls, they are proper. They do have a properness to them. They have a prissiness to them. I won't lie, and I'm not mad about it. But I feel like there's parts of it, though, like the layout of it. Like sometimes the houses, too. And some of it is kind of cringy, like a little dingy. I enjoyed it, though. I would go back. I just, you know, my living conditions in America were always way higher. When I went to London, I was very humble, including staying inside these rooms, even though they weren't. Some of them were actually really nice, but some of them was not. And people are still getting paid for those type of places, and it's like, wow, someone's going to stay there. It's not going to be me. Like, I'm going to report it, but there was a lot of different type of variety of options as far as London was concerned, and I really did humble myself. I'm not going to lie. Also along the journey, because I want to try to keep this as short as possible, because I want to try to watch all of it to the end. I traveled to East London. I traveled to Northwest London. I started in North London. So here's the final part. From East London, I went to West London. From West London, I was like, all right, now what? Because I had traveled the whole thing besides like the very low bottom part of South. I wind up, everyone kept on telling me to go to Brixton Masjid. Shout out to Brixton Masjid. The sister circle there is on point. East London sister circle is on point. But when I finally got the time to go to Brixton, it looked just like Philly. Not the Masjid. We're not going to get to the Masjid yet. The Brixton, the station, the train station, and the street. All around it, it looked like North Philadelphia. 52nd Street. So I was like, wow. And I know it sounds crazy because it was kind of, it's like real hood, very hood. But because I'm so used to Philly and I've lived the majority of my life, guess what it felt like? Brixton felt like home. Brixton felt like home, bruv. It felt like home. And then I run into some sisters at Brixton Masjid because I was asking them about food. And one of them just grips my hand and we go off the San Marino, which is a cafe that people go to like for let outs and for the Eid, you know, after Juma or for Eid breakfast and stuff like that. Like that's the cafe that you would go to. I wound up going to San Marino with them. It was a Somali sister, Lebanese sister, and oh my God, what do you call the other one? Not Guyanese, but something like that. Those were the 3 girls that I met first. And I'll say the Lebanese sister, I'll call her T. I'll call her Somali sister. Anytime you ever hear anything for her, I'll call her H. We were like this after this. After I met them from the day one, it was so crazy because people had really been telling me to go to Brixton that whole time I was there, and I didn't run into them until like April. Ain't it crazy? I went as soon as I met them. So Brixton, it was ghetto, but it was very much like home, and it felt like home, and I had found my group of girls. So at that point, I'm like, okay, that was in Southwest. So I'm like, all right, well, let me see about finding somewhere in Southwest. I didn't find anywhere in Southwest, but I did find somewhere in Northwest. There is a company. I don't even know if I should give this one, not because I don't want to share it, but you know how something is so good, sometimes when you share it, too many people find out, and then when you go back to it, it's not available anymore. It's like that. So y'all let me go there one more time and let me use it, and then I'll tell y'all. But it pretty much is a company, like, it's very complicated, especially if you're a visitor and not a resident or a citizen or someone who has a visa when you go to UK. Like, your paperwork has to be in order. They do not play no games around there, okay? And if they catch you scheming and scamming on immigrancy, if you get caught, you cannot never go back there again. And a part of why I went to UK is kind of like still on a continuous cycle. So I'm like, no, I need to be able to get back here if I need to come back. So I was trying to follow proper protocol. Okay. So there was a company that geared specifically to to people who had short-term stay, but it would be like a full apartment. But it wasn't like any of the apps or anything like that. It was like face-to-face, person-to-person. You meet them, you see the place, and then you either pay every 2 weeks or you pay every month. I thought that was good. It was $1,100 for a studio, $1,100 in GBP. I think that winds up being about $1,500. Utilities all included, and then you can stay however long you want. That was good. But when I got to Brixton, I feel like it wasn't the first week that I met the girls. It was the next week after I met T. I met up with her again after Juma that next weekend, I believe. And there was a girl with her. I'll call her K. A sister. She had 2 houses. She had a house in Birmingham, and then she had a house which is 2 hours away from, like 2.5 hours away from London, and then she had a house in London. And what wound up happening was T wound up talking to K, and K, they wound up agreeing like, all right, I'm going to stay at one of K's spots. So she was like, which one do you want to stay at? And obviously I want to stay in London because it's summertime. It's about to get lit. And I already met my group of girls, so we about to get the business for the summer, right? Even though it's still kind of like springish, but once the sun starts shining, I was hyped. I was outside, but I wound up staying with Kay, but we did a house share. So that's when you rent a room out of a full house, and I appreciate it because it allowed me to save money, because I would have been paying $1,500 for a studio. I would have had my own space, yes. But remember I told y'all when I started getting, like, when I was there for a while, I started to reconsider the way that I had been spending. I'm like, let me be a little bit more tight, because you never know the way things are going to go. And I don't want to have spent more and have less. I'd rather spend less and have more. And then on top of that, if you know anything about meetups with the girls, all it consists of is food. So you need money for food. You got to eat. So I spent majority of my money on food. So the house share thing worked out. It did. So I was in Southwest London. I was right around the corner from the masjid. I was right around the corner from the sister circle. Then sometimes the sister circle for Brixton would go to East London. It was lit. It was very, very nice. They did a lot of events. They did a lot of like stuff at the park. They did a lot of like fun games. We did squid games. It was a lot of things. Like, London is so good for Islamic culture. I mean, like a bunch of Islamic cultured stuff. It's really good for halal food, and it's really good for if you want to go to classes or if you want to learn. Like, it's good for that. Even though it is a European country, you can get some form of benefit if you do go there. And I know anywhere that I go, I want to be around people who kind of like look like me and kind of live like me. So there's the understanding of what's going on, even outside of like the big city, right? I want to be able to be relatable and be able to relate to what's around me. So London worked out for me. In addition to that, yeah, I did humble myself. I did. I got very humble, but I met an amazing group of sisters. Why did I go? We can name several reasons why from just the story alone. Let's see. Let's name it together. One, the two sisters who started my desire and hunger to want to be able to leave. Two, I was annoyed at the fact that I had missed my program, my school program deadline. So the idea that I had to wait another 12 months, I said, let's make the most of the 12 months. Third, the remote job just came in handy. Like, it just worked out. So I said, if God is going to give it, why not take it? Then I always wanted to go to London because of the reasons that I said before: the food, the culture, the vibes. And really it gives New York, but just more space. And it's a melting pot. So it really is a New York City, but just imagine New York City more spaced out. That's London. Also, because I'm a city girl and I come from the city, like, it wasn't foreign to me. As soon as I got there, because my sister told me that I was going to have a culture shock and I was going to break down. I went there, I was looking around, I'm like, is this New York or DC? That's how I looked. So I kind of just go with the flow. I was going with the flow. So where we at 4? Okay, the next one after that, another reason would be because once I realized when I got there that, hey, I can go to school here, I was like, well, let me apply here. I might be able to get into school before 12 months when the next program starts here. And come to find out, the prices are kind of very identical to United States for the program that I was trying to get into. So I'm like, I started applying to schools there. That I didn't plan for that, but it was in the back of my mind, but it came to the front of my mind. It was actually something that I started working on when I got there. Something else was the reason I would say why I just was ready for something new. Have you ever felt like, what am I doing? What time is being wasted? What can I do with this time? What will set my heart on fire? I started feeling like I had been holding back doing stuff that I wanted to do because of other people. And because of that, it was like burning my soul on top of my annoyance about the deadline. I won't forget that. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'm a little petty. So I was still also annoyed about that. So I said, I'm out. We're going to just live it up. However way we live it, wherever we go. So that's it. Also, I'm not going to lie to y'all. And we'll talk about this in another video too, because I got a lot of videos to go through on telling the tea. I was there for marriage. Give me a halal British speaking brother and tell me I won't be okay. Yeah. So that was another thing. You know what I'm saying? I was vibing. It was a vibe. And I will tell you, I'm not going to say that the pool of men there doesn't still have poop in it, but I feel like it gives you more opportunity to like not have to deal with someone who already has kids, who had already been married before, or potentially meet a family like that's the whole family's Muslim and it not be like, you know, maybe all like only converts or like reverts. So it gave a little bit of a mix. And if y'all can tell anything about me so far from just this one video, I like to switch stuff up. I like flavors. I'm an explorer. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad about it. I was going with the flow. So those were several reasons why, on top of the fact that I just was ready to live a little. I was ready. And as we go through more of these videos, y'all learn more about the aspects of my life, because this travel piece was like, it was a big portion, but it's not even all of it. You know what I mean? Like these, I'm gonna try to piece everything together as I go through each one of these videos. So by the time you watched a few, you're like, oh, it all comes together like this. So yes, this is the layout of how I went to UK from America as a covered Muslim girl and figured it out. Oh, I also want to tell y'all, one of my best friends, she went to Paris, and guess what I did? She went to Paris in June. I caught a flight. I think it was less than $100, and I went to Paris to go and visit her, and I stayed with her for a weekend. It was nice. So then I came back. So February, March, April, May, June, July. My time technically would have been up in July, but I had already, because I went to Turkey, what I realized when I stamped my passport in Turkey and came back to London, it reset the 6 months. So it's not necessarily on a full calendar year. If you leave before 6 months, depending on how long you're gone for, it could potentially reset. And I don't know if it, and how I know it did that is because as soon as I came back from Turkey was around the time that I started looking for places. So I had to have people check my documents to make sure I was able to legally rent there as a visitor. So that's how I knew, because they had counted my passport stamp from Turkey. They didn't count my original timestamp that was at the end of January. So it reset my 6 months to then become March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, to like October, November-ish. Yes, fun fact to find out in the midst of this whole thing. And the amazing thing another part too, you can plan, but then you always find out. The plans don't always go to plans, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But I'm gonna go, because this is a little bit longer than I planned to, but I tried to get in as much as I possibly could into the story. But I'll be back for another one, okay? If y'all want to know more about my crazy life and the random things that I do, like, share, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. See y'all in the next one. Salams. Peace.